For many years, Hermès has stood at the top of the luxury fashion world. Just hearing the name brings up visions of elegant Paris boutiques, polite salespeople in white gloves, and handbags so hard to get that even the wealthiest people in the world have to wait their turn. The Hermès Birkin and Kelly bags aren't seen as just fashion items, they're symbols of wealth, success, and high status. For a long time, owning one meant you had truly made it. These bags come with jaw-dropping prices. At a regular store, a single Birkin can cost anywhere from $15,000 to $40,000. But in the resale market, rare pieces can go for over $100,000. And people aren't just paying for leather and hardware, they're paying for a story, a tradition, a dream sold by Hermès, that every bag is made by hand in France, stitched by expert artisans trained for years. That "Made in France" label has always been a big part of the brand's image, something their wealthy buyers believed in deeply. But recently, that image has started to crack, and not quietly. What began as a small whisper online turned into a storm. It started with a TikTok video. A factory worker in China posted a short, low-quality clip of himself stitching what clearly looked like a Hermès bag. At first, most people thought it had to be fake. Hermès would never make their products in China, right? But then came more videos. More workers. More behind-the-scenes looks. And soon, a very uncomfortable question started spreading. What if Hermès bags weren't all handcrafted in Paris by elite artisans? What if they were being mass-produced in modern Chinese factories by workers who, although talented, had nothing to do with the romantic picture Hermès painted? And this time, the workers weren't staying quiet. They showed proof. Video clips from inside the factories. Footage of the production line. They demonstrated the same leather cuts, the same stitching techniques, the same high-end hardware, everything that made a Hermès bag. The only difference? The cost. According to several manufacturers speaking out, producing one of these luxury bags costs about $600. That includes the leather, the labor, and the materials. But once that bag ends up in a boutique, it's sold for up to $30,000, or even more. That's a markup of nearly 5,000%. And here's the part that shocked everyone the most: the workers weren't claiming these were counterfeits. They said they were making the real bags, sometimes for Hermès, sometimes not. And occasionally, they said, some extra bags were made and sold through other channels. Social media exploded. People who had spent small fortunes on their Hermès collections started asking hard questions. If the bags weren't all made in France, if the supply chain had holes, if the "Made in France" tag was only added later during finishing touches in Europe, then what were they really paying for? A $600 item with a $30,000 price tag, dressed up with a fantasy? Hermès reacted fast and hard. Their legal team started filing lawsuits, accusing Chinese factories of lying and illegally using their designs. They released statements denying every accusation. According to Hermès, every single bag is still handmade in France by expert craftsmen. They said their internal checks are strict and their process hasn't changed. But by that point, the damage had already been done. People had already seen too much. They had watched the factory videos with their own eyes, bags being stitched, polished, and finished not in Paris, but in Shenzhen. The tools and techniques used looked exactly like what Hermès had shown in their own branding. The belief that Hermès was one of the last true luxury houses still doing things the old-fashioned way had taken a serious hit. The backlash was quick and fierce. Online comments called Hermès a fraud. Many accused the brand of selling dreams instead of products. One TikTok user summed it up perfectly: "I didn't buy a bag, I bought an illusion. And now I want my money back." The fallout spread fast. High-end resale websites began pulling Hermès items. Some authenticators started rechecking pieces quietly behind the scenes. Even major auction houses paused their Hermès listings, waiting to see how things would play out. People who had spent tens or even hundreds of thousands on Hermès goods suddenly weren't sure what they had. Was it truly worth what they paid? Was it even authentic? This moment has left the luxury world shaken. For so long, Hermès stood above the rest, untouchable. But now, that trust is broken. The truth isn't just about where the bags were made. It's about how much of luxury is real, and how much is simply storytelling. Buyers believed they were paying for French artistry, tradition, and exclusivity. But if all of that can be replicated in a factory on the other side of the world, then what are they actually buying? As questions continue to swirl and the brand fights to protect its image, one thing is clear: luxury isn't just about leather and stitching, it's about belief. And once that belief is gone, it's hard to get it back. Everything changed, and fast. Once people started questioning Hermès, the rest of the luxury world began to feel the pressure. It wasn't just Hermès anymore. Whispers turned into louder talk, and soon other big names were being pulled into the spotlight. There were reports that Prada was making parts of their bags in China. Then, they would finish the last stitches in Italy, just so they could legally label the product, made in Italy. Louis Vuitton, another major luxury name, was also caught in the rumor mill. Many of their items, people claimed, were actually being made in the US or Spain, even though they carried European prices. And then there was Chanel. They didn't say anything at all, which made people even more suspicious. As more factory workers came forward, the truth started to hit. People who had worked across multiple luxury brands said something shocking: they used the same materials and the same production lines. The only real difference? The logo added at the end. That's when it really sank in: luxury shoppers weren't paying for better products, they were paying for better branding. The luxury fashion industry, once seen as the home of quality and tradition, began to look like a carefully built illusion. All the silk scarves, fancy runways, and elegant French branding couldn't hide what was coming to light. And the timing couldn't have been worse. In a post-pandemic world, shoppers are smarter. They ask more questions, check the facts, and connect with others online. People want to know where their money is going. And when video proof started showing up, clear factory footage shot by the people actually making the bags, it was hard to ignore. The worst part? The excuse luxury brands have always used to explain their sky-high prices started falling apart. For years, they said their bags were expensive because they were made slowly, carefully, and with rare skill. But if the exact same bag can be made in a Chinese factory with the same materials and tools, for around $600, then why are customers paying $38,000? Soon, online forums like Reddit were flooded with people sharing their regret. Luxury bag owners posted comparison photos of their pricey $25,000 Hermes purse and a $300 replica made in the same factory. And honestly, no one could tell the difference. Even influencers started speaking out, criticizing the brands and supporting the factory workers for telling the truth. This wasn't just about fakes anymore. It raised a bigger question: what even counts as real now? Things got worse. Resale values dropped quickly. Bags that were once seen as solid investments suddenly didn't hold the same power. People called their luxury insurers, wanting to re-evaluate their coverage. Authentication services were in trouble too. How do you confirm something is real when the original and the replica are made in the same place by the same people? Hermès may be fighting legal battles, but in the eyes of the public, they're losing. Their brand was built on mystery, class, and exclusivity. But none of that matters if people stop believing in the story. Once trust is broken, it's hard to rebuild. And here's the real twist: made in China doesn't mean low quality anymore. These factories are producing clean, sharp, and detailed work, often better than what's coming out of Europe. What used to be looked down on is now seen as a symbol of efficiency and skill. So where does this leave the luxury world? Exposed. Stripped of their smoke and mirrors, the big names now stand in front of a global audience that demands something different. Not more marketing. Not more fantasy. But truth. Transparency. Real value. The illusion is gone. And now, brands must decide, adapt, or be left behind. Because one TikTok video can change everything.